Hi, this is Rocky, and welcome to yet another one of my software installation videos. Today I will be showing you how to install and configure DHCP on Windows Server 2008 R2. DHCP, or Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, enables your server to automatically assign IP addresses and return configuration settings automatically to client machines working on your network. Now this is very useful, as if you are working with a very large network, manually assigning IP addresses can be a real pain. So before I begin, let's look at what happens in the background. Once your PC is configured to obtain an IP address from your DHCP server, it sends out an DHCP recovery broadcast. Right? This goes out on the network or your local subnet, and it searches for any DHCP server. Once a response from the DHCP server comes back in the part of what they call a DHCP offer message containing an IP address and configuration information for a lease to the client, then the client indicates acceptance of this offer by selecting the offered address and broadcasting a DHCP request message in a response. The client is assigned this address then by the server by use of a server broadcast, a DHCP ACK message in response, finalizing the terms of the lease. Alright, so basically four ways, and that is the background of how your client server or client machine, gets the IP address from the DHCP server. Alright, so let's go on to see exactly how this works. Right, so we have the server up and running. Windows Server 2008 R2. Now the first thing we need to do is it comes up here automatically. You go into roles, add roles, server roles, and you click DHCP server. Right. Click next. Now this page comes up here. It shows you it introduces what the DHCP server actually is for you. So after having a good read of this, and then you will continue to click next. Now, so what it does here is it gives you an IP address for the server itself. By selecting network connections that this DHCP server will use, and this is the IP address that it will use, and it's IPv4. Right, so click next. Now what this does is here it offers a preferred DNS server IP address. Right, now obviously it gives you what they call the loopback address, right, and what it means is that it's on this machine. So it indicates that the server or the DNS would be configured on this machine. Right, so you can validate this, make sure it's valid, and it comes up that it's valid. So you have the loopback address here, which is 127.0.0.1, and we can actually use this for the DNS server. Right, we won't be using WINS on this machine. You continue to click next, and we have what they call the DHCP scope. Now the scope itself lists an entire range of possible IP addresses that the DHCP server will be distributing. Right, unless we actually create a scope, the DHCP server will be useless. It wouldn't be able to give out any IP addresses because it wouldn't have any IP addresses to give out. Right, so you have to click add here, and we need to name the scope. Name the scope client machine. Anything you need to name the scope. right? And you give a starting IP address, right? But what I normally do is reserve certain amount of addresses for giving it out, like to servers or printers or any machine that you don't really want to be losing its IP address. The reason why you want to do that is because when you set up your machines to go to a certain IP address for a certain service, if it's on a DHCP server and it's receiving this IP address dynamically, then when your client machine goes to that IP address, it would be receiving a different service. So if it is you have a printer that is receiving a dynamic IP address, which I wouldn't advise, when your machine, when the lease goes out, then your machine would be probably requesting to print from another client server, another client address, which would just cause a lot of chaos in the long term. So what you need to do is, as I do, just make sure that we have certain addresses reserved specifically for certain machines, and you will see that when we start going into a bit later into what we call reserving addresses, right? So we'll start with the starting our IP address 192.168.0.1, and we'll go all the way up to 192.168.0.224. right? Now what you see here is the leases actually only has a duration of 8 days. So once your client machine is on the system, up to 8 days it will have the IP address before it will have to actually confirm it again or request another IP address, right? Click OK. So here we go, we have the first range. Click next. Now I won't be using version 6 for this, so we'll just click to disable DHCP v6 stateless mode and click next. Right. So it basically needs authorization. Right, DHCP needs authorization, so we'll just leave the authorization here and click next. Alright, so now you have the confirmation page. You see all the information you need. You have the range of IP addresses, the list, and that's it. Click install. Right, so there we go, DHCP has been installed successfully. So now let's close this off and we'll go and restart the server. So now that we have installed the DHCP services on the server, we're going to actually start configuring DHCP. Right, open roles, go to DHCP server. Now this is the server. We have some information coming up here. Go through and read it if you want. Go on to the IPv4, but this is the one that we're using for this video. Scope. Now the scope is what we had done earlier on when we were actually installing DHCP. Is that set of that range of addresses that we would like the DHCP to offer to clients, right? So we have the address pool here is from the 110 to 1254, and if you could remember, what we wanted is to make sure that certain addresses would be given dynamically and certain addresses would be given static, right? We normally, well, me personally, I normally give the servers and certain machines that you don't want an IP address changing for to be done static, right? So I normally exclude the first 10 ranges. So that is from 1 to 10 or 1 to 9, and everything above 10 is given dynamically. Alright, so this is the address pool that we have. We go on to reservations. We'll come back to leases soon. Leases is basically all the addresses or all the machines that were given addresses, and you'll see how it works when we actually run client dynamically. Now reservations basically is the same thing that we did before, but where you actually physically type in the reservation numbers. So you could type in here a new reservation, and this would be reserved for specific clients. All right. What you do is you reserve a specific address for a client. So if you want here, you want the server, right? Server, and you could actually reserve that .1 address. But what you also need to do is have the MAC address for that machine itself, right? As you know, you could just go onto the machine and type get MAC, right? And you get the MAC address in the command prompt. You get the MAC address for here, right? So I'm not going to create one of those here. And then we go on to the server options, and the server options let's basically show us in terms of the scope options, right? And you can configure options where you type in a specific address for maybe the server, the router, and all these different things, right? And you can continue to play with that as you seem fit, right? So what we have already configured here is important to us is the pool that we have here, and when we go on now to actually check to see the machine runs the DHCP, we will see how the address leases come in, right? So let's go on now to start working with an IP address from the client, so the client machine Windows 7. Okay, so now we have the Windows 7 machine. We just right click, go to the options here, and change the adapter settings, right? Properties, and then we go to the version 4 properties. So in order for us to show that the DHCP is working, we just went back onto the Windows 7 virtual machine, and as you see here, it is using an IP address, static IP address. So we will just click for it to go obtain it automatically or dynamically from the server. Okay, close. And now we are going to just run a command prompt and see ipconfig /all and run the IP, and as you can see, we have the DHCP enabled. Alright, so you show that DHCP is enabled, yes, right, and it has an IP address given. Now remember, the IP addresses that were allocated was from 192.168.1.10, right, all the way up to 254. So here we have the IP address being given .1.11, right, and we also have the lease obtained, so it shows when the lease was obtained here and when it should be expired, right? So it says expires basically 8 days after, from the 9th to the 17th, right? So there we go. We see that we have the DHCP server. This is the DHCP server here and the DNS server, and it is enabled. So we'll now go across the server machine, and when we go into DHCP, I just want to show you that the IP4 version, right? So we have the scope, and the scope is active, right? This is the address pool that we have here. So all these ranges from 10 to 254 are available. And we also, let's go back out to that, we have the address leases. So we have the lease here. This is the lease for the Windows 7 machine that was given on this date at this time, right? So we have that lease that is given. So it shows that yes, we have the DHCP configured because it's showing up yes, and it's automatically giving addresses, and this is the address lease area here. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that you have received something out of it, and I hope to see you very soon when we go and install or configure DNS. Thank you very much. Bye.